getting to know your market as far as what people actually want to buy at is going to be a game changer and differentiator for you as a wholesaler versus, your competitors in that market.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today is the Scale Show, and we are welcomed by Kyle Nelson out of, was it Macataw, Minnesota? Is that how you say it? Somewhere over there in the Midwest. I'm on the West Coast. Everywhere on like that side of the Rockies is kind of the same. I have no idea. But Kyle has been a member of the Scale community for a little bit, probably coming up on a year now. And you have really been taking your market up by storm up there, all while, managing a family and a job and everything else. And so, dude, super excited to have you on the show. To give us a little bit of context, why don't you give us a 3-minute breakdown, who exactly you are, where exactly you're based, like specifically what kind of stuff you're pursuing and what your team currently looks like.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. What an honor to be able to be on this show and really tell you guys a little bit about my story and where we're at. It's been pretty fun so far. I'm looking forward to where we go. I'm based in southern Minnesota, really small town. I grew up in kind of the Minneapolis metro area and then moved to southern Minnesota. During that time, I was an IT nerd and then turned into a finance nerd, and now I'm doing real estate. So started out, doing IT for government, and then went into finance industry, and then from there started listening to podcasts. Of course, read all the books with Brandon Turner and Bigger Pockets, and that fueled the fire to really kind of look into real estate and figure out what we wanted to do. So far, with really only doing real estate for about 7 months now, we are solidly involved in that, seeking for kind of multifamily properties, but we're wholesaling along the way to really kind of generate that capital that we're then using for buying multifamily assets. So
totally. And you want to give us a breakdown of kind of the deals that you've done, because you've jumped in some big stuff pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm in kind of a unique position. So my wife and I, between our W-2 jobs, we are very high income earners. And so we've got the capital to be able to jump in with both feet and really kind of do this thing. So we started our first mailing December 6th of 2023. By December 28th, we had locked down our first deal, and that's actually the flip that we're currently working on right now. Since then, we've done 5 wholesale deals, 1 flip, 1 buy and hold, which is a 9-unit apartment building. And we're on our way right now next week to actually close on another flip opportunity. So we are well within the trenches here.
Yeah. And I think that 9-unit that you bought, too, that was one of like your first leads. I remember talking to you about that in the group like a long time ago.
Yeah. The crazy part is like between that multifamily property and then the flip that we bought was all with the first batch of mail marketing. So, I mean, I hear from wholesalers all the time is that, it takes, 2-3 batches for you to finally start to get a lot of traction. And I mean, shoot, we got it within the first batch, which I think really goes to show the market in some of these rural areas is actually pretty hot if you know what you're doing.
You're probably the only one doing it too. And then like areas like that. So, I mean, honestly, you have more opportunities. Didn't you get good terms on that 9-unit too? Or did you buy that straight up?
No, we actually got pretty good terms. So we got that one for about, I'd say 85% of what the value should have been, just through conversations with the seller and then trying to figure out, okay, he's got more properties. He wants to continue to move those along. So it's really building the relationship with this gentleman that we eventually are going to continue to buy more of his properties. So he's kind of a big portfolio guy, and he's going to be moving his way out of that portfolio over time. So we're going to try and bite off as much as we can over time here and continue to build our portfolio up while helping him to kind of divest and get out of the business.
It's a perfect relationship, especially from the start like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Kyle, do you have anybody but you working in the business right now?
No, it is literally just me, and my wife is an absolute saint because she's really good on the operational side. And with her owning her own business, she's been extremely helpful in really kind of walking me through business ownership, things you need to consider. And from an operational perspective, she's been able to bring a lot of insights into things that I probably wouldn't have thought about. Naturally, I just kind of feel like I'm more of a salesman and understand like hey, let's just go 100% at it and really kind of skip over a lot of the finer details, which she's kind of been able to help me out with. So it's been tremendously helpful to have her on the back end. But otherwise, I'm just a solopreneur at this point.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is huge to have a spouse/business partner like that. Like some of the biggest, I would say, companies, groups I know out there are those like couples that can like figure out how to work together. Because here's the great thing about, if your spouse, your business partner, you get to keep all the money. If you have like a business partner that is just like a friend or whatever, you got to split stuff 50-50. And as much as I love Dan, sometimes I'm like, damn, I'd love to have your money too. Because it would definitely I would be living a different lifestyle at this point if I had that. But the trade-off is obviously, if your spouse is your business partner, it's kind of hard to get away from work, right? Like, right on, man. So how are you sourcing all your deals right now?
So all of our deals right now are direct mail marketing. We did sprinkle in a little bit of cold calling as well as texting, but majority of our leads that we're actively working right now are all through direct mail marketing.
Cool.
And how much like marketing are you sending out on a monthly basis, would you say?
Yeah, so right now we're sending out about $3,000 consistently every month is what's going out. And of those, right now we've got about 164 leads that we're currently kind of working. I'd say probably of those 164, we've got about 18 that are active that we have truly opportunities with. So, I feel like we've got a pretty good flow going right now from leads perspective.
And you've been in scale for 7 months. So anyone doing that math, and this is unusual. Typically you wouldn't count that even the first 1 or 2 months, but it's about 25 leads per month just accruing from those leads.
Yeah. Well, you've been in scale for longer because you came in and learned for like a while before you jumped in. But quick math I have on that though, Dylan, is we're recording this in August. You started beginning of December with your marketing. So that's 8 months paid at 164 leads. That's $146 a lead. That's pretty standard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the keys are doing it consistently though. I think a lot of people, what happens if as soon as they have a down month, they try to shift it. So nice. And then you said how many deals have you done? You said you've done 10.
Right now we got 5 wholesale deals that we've done, 1 flip, 1 buy and hold, and then we've got another that we're closing on next week.
So that's 8, right?
Yeah.
5, 3. So perfect, right? So that's a cost per deal about 3,000. Like you're right on the money, dude. Like that's exactly what we would expect. So that's sick.
Yep.
Especially as like a solo operator, you don't have a lot of the, I don't know, like the inefficiencies that happen that bring up your cost per lead.
Kyle, when you did those first couple of wholesale deals, being new, not only to your market, but new to kind of real estate in general, how was dispoing those first couple of deals?
Oh my gosh, I've never been so stressed in my life. Honestly, so being new, one of the things that I didn't really take into consideration was just having phone conversations, figuring out who the buyers are in these areas. Immediately, my first thought was, all right, let's just get the deals and then we'll figure it out from there on how to get rid of it. And we did that, but then I felt like it created a little bit more stress than we otherwise needed to have. And so, if I could go back and do it all over again, the one thing I'd probably do is try and build up that buyers list ASAP. As soon as you send out that first batch of marketing, if not before, just start calling some of the buyers in the area and just say, hey, what are you looking for? What's the price range you're looking to acquire these at? Things like that. Just get to know the markets that you're investing in or marketing to, because that at the end is going to help you. I'll actually give you guys one of my stories later on for the first wholesale deal that I think would be pretty interesting. But we almost had to go with a cloud on title situation with one of those wholesales just to dispo it. But honestly, the dispo part of it was probably the most stressful for me, just because I didn't have that list. I didn't know any of the buyers. And so that was probably the hardest part for me.
So the follow-up question to that, I'm going to guess that first wholesale deal, your spread was anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000.
100%.
Yep. Yeah.
It always is.
Yeah. One, because you just don't know. And 2, if you're having a tough time dispoing it, this means that spread's probably not always there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And that's probably the hardest part too, where I think a lot of it, any of you that are listening right now that are maybe new to the game, is just that underwriting side of it, is trying to figure out what the numbers are. Because you could do the numbers all day long based on statistics and, rules of thumb and things like that. But at the end of the day, depending on your market, people are going to buy at certain prices. And so if you get outside of that, it's really hard to, get that spread. And so I think getting to know your market as far as what people actually want to buy at is going to be a game changer and differentiator for you as a wholesaler versus, your competitors in that market.
Yeah. On that note, like your market is a lower price point market. We get people all the time that, I don't know, are from different parts of the country where stuff is cheap. And that's one of the biggest questions they ask is it even possible to wholesale there because of the way the margins are? Like if you have a house that's only worth 50 grand, there's only so much mathematically that you can carve out of that thing, right? So what is your average like deal size that you have there? How do you handle stuff in this cheaper market?
Yeah, so like for example, for us, the flip that we're going to close on next week, I'm buying it for 38,000. And that one will probably be able to either, if we put a whole bunch of money into it, probably upwards of 140. If we do just a little bit of paint and things like that and carpet, we'll probably get somewhere in that 60 to 70,000 range. So there's still enough margin there that if you wanted to do it, you can. Now, as far as a wholesale deal, again, it's knowing your market. And so for my market, at least where I'm at, the average deal, these guys want to buy them at 40,000 or less. So you got to be well below that,
Congrats on
somewhere
your
between.
$2,000.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
So you gotta know where you're at. So if I know that my buyers are trying to be at somewhere between that $40,000 to $50,000 range, I know that I've got to get this thing locked up at 25 to 35,000 in order to have any sort of margin there for a decent little wholesale fee.
Yeah.
Usually, I would say if you're looking at it, it's going to be somewhere between that 5,000 to 7,500, and those are really good base hits.
Mhm.
So
And for the audience, like to speak to what Kyle's saying, you can go on, even if you don't have PropStream or you don't have Investor Lift or any of these other tools, you can go on Zillow and you can find as is sales to find out what's selling in that area and use that as your benchmark. Like, and you can reverse engineer where you need to be at for some of your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I want to highlight too, Kyle, is when you got into this, I remember getting on Zoom with you and your wife before you ended up joining Scale, but you didn't know like any of this, right? You were as green could be. And normally we don't let people like that into Scale, but the reason that we chose to was you had the money to actually be able to afford building a business. You weren't going to like bankrupt yourself. And B, just from talking to you, I could tell that you were, I don't know, going to be proactive about stuff. But what was it like, I would say, jumping into, a community of people that are like actively doing these businesses and kind of like having to learn, like, how did you, I would say, get like the courage to like take that big leap, and like, what was like your biggest mental roadblocks you had to overcome on that?
honestly, so we spent a lot of time, my wife and I did, trying to interview different programs, collecting keys being one of them, and which is now Scale Community. We interviewed so many, honestly, probably about 10 to 12 different quote unquote gurus or guys that are in the space selling mentorships and programs. And I remember when we actually sat down with you, Mike, and we interviewed and asked you questions, we felt really good about the conversations, the genuineness of what you guys are trying to do and help people in not just, scaling their existing business, but taking someone like us that is 100% green behind the ears, has no idea what they're doing and really showing us the ropes. And I remember, I might come across as confident, but, going into that first call, that scale call, and not knowing anybody, not knowing anything, and you had said, Kyle, introduce yourself to the team. I mean, I felt like an idiot just introducing myself. Yeah, hey, I got nothing. I'm not experienced at all. I could barely spell real estate at that point in time, and it was really nervous for me to do that. But I I am so proud of what we did there just to take that first step. And what we did is I think we joined it in, gosh, it's probably April of 2023. And literally, I attended as many calls as I could, knowing that I still had a newborn at that point in time, a young family, trying to take care of everything. But I made sure that I attended those calls just to get to know, the real estate, what people are doing, how people are talking, the lingo, what should I be thinking about, what should I be looking for. And I didn't ask a single question for probably 2 months. I just kind of sat there and observed and listened. And then I remember, the Keys Con event came up, and that was really the turning point for me. I told my wife, we sat down at a dinner table, and I said, "Hey, this event is coming up. It's going to cost us some money, but I think we need to do this because at the end of the day, I need to be around people that are doing this to really kind of light that fire and ignite, this what we've done so far, this forest fire, so to speak, that's just gone." And so she said, "You know what? At the end of the day, do what you need to do. But if this is truly what you're passionate about, make sure that you put everything into it." And I took that seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, we got to KeysCon in November of 2023. And at that point in time, I remember Dylan, you and I sat, we arrived at the airport. We shared a car together. You were sitting there closing deals in the car.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
I was like, man, this is the real deal. But, that to me was inspirational. And being around guys that are doing deals and actually in the business, talking to them, really lighted a fire for me that said, Kyle, get off your ass and do this. Just commit to it and do it. And that for me was the game changer. Because then as soon as I got back, I'm one of those guys that's like a ready, fire, aim sort of deal. I just started going. And I was like, yep, we're doing this, and this. And my wife's like, have you read everything? Have you done everything? But that's her operational side versus me, where I'm just like, let's go, baby.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean,
Yeah.
that speaks volumes. I do remember you picked me up from the airport because you had that rent a car, and then we traveled on the way to KeysCon. I think we just talked about like business and life for a good 90 minutes. And I could tell just then, I was like, he doesn't have a lot of experience, but he's going to be good just because you were a sponge with everything else, you know?
Yeah.
So credit to you.
Yeah. Willingness to learn and willingness to take action are two of the biggest things that lead to success, right? 100%. Like pretty much every person that we've ever worked with that hasn't been successful, it's either because they're not willing to learn or try new things, and they aren't, or they aren't willing to like actually fully commit to stuff, and they kind of do like pinky toe in and nothing else. I mean, even then there's people in the group right now that we see on a regular basis that are kind of asking the same questions, aren't like taking big action. And I'm hoping someone listens to this show and they feel a little kick in the ass, because we do see you scale guys that aren't doing what you need to be doing. But you know, like Dylan said, we could just tell right from the get-go that you were going to figure it out. Like you always kind of get a feeling about people. That's a good segue though to like, obviously when you jumped into that, you know, like you said, you guys were high income earners. You just had a newborn. How do you balance like growing your business like you have been with your life and like your lifestyle? You also have W-2. And so like there's a lot of balancing going on across all pieces. Cause also, how many kids? You have 4?
we have 2, thankfully.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know why I thought you had more than that, but either way, like that's
wife
still
doesn't know about the
commitment.
other 2.
Yeah, officially, yeah.
Yeah, we've got 2 kids, both under age 5, so it's pretty hectic. But you know, with having a job, the one thing that I encourage people to do is don't be afraid of starting something, even though you've got a job. Right? You can still do things at night, you know, on weekends, things like that. But what I'll say is, like when I came across opportunities and leads, I wasn't walking all of these houses. I found people in the different markets that I was marketing to, and here this is a good perspective for people. The radius of what I was marketing was about 90 miles east, west, and north of me. And so within that area, you know, you just find people that you can trust. Again, going to real estate meetups, having conversations, talking to agents, figuring out, hey, who should I talk to? Get to know someone in that market. And I was having people walk these houses for me that I just paid them $50 to go walk a house, take some pictures, give me a little bit of rundown of what the house actually looked like. And then from there, then we can generate our offers, get those sent out. And I didn't even have to step foot in that place. So, you know, it really allowed me to continue to be in my W-2 job, not have to worry about it, still be able to get deals going, submit offers, and continue to run the business from there. So I think the hardest part for us was trying to balance, you know, time with the kids, right? Because I work the W-2, I get home, you know, you want to spend time with the kiddos before they go to bed, and then of course have a little bit of time with my wife. But then when everybody kind of settles down, kids are asleep, that's when I log in and start just pounding out work. So it's a couple, 3 hours at night. You just get it done. You just commit to it. Again, this is something that if you want this for your future, you have to commit to it, and you got to do the actions in order for it to work.
You need time, money, or hustle, and you've got the money and the hustle, right? And just not all the time. So you find someone else to do the time. And that's perfect. There's A players in every single market in the United States. So that can work anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, the thing is there too, is you weren't a real estate expert, admittedly, right? And so being able to leverage these people in different markets that were maybe a little bit more experts or even not, right? If they're also kind of ignorant, but you kind of tell them what exactly you're looking for, that's pretty much the same as you being there. You know, it's always one of the biggest farces to me is you have a new real estate investor and they feel like they need to walk every house. They're like, and they always say shit like, I just want to get eyes on it. It's like, what the fuck are you looking for? You don't even know. It's like, you just want to be able to go and like touch the walls. So you're going to drive 2 hours round trip to this lead you got. No, just like hire someone there to go and be ignorant in the house and send you the pictures. Like,
and
it's
then
the
send
same
those pictures to someone
thing.
who knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same fundamental thing, but it saves you so much time and it allows you to do the stuff that's actually going to make you money, which is, you know, as you know, calling leads, making offers, like structuring deals, things like that.
So Kyle, I did want to ask, because this is something that's important in this business is speed to lead. And obviously you are kind of stretched or limited on time. So what does that look like when a lead does come in from mailers? Like how quickly are you getting to these leads, or do you have anything in place to help with that? Or what does that currently look like?
Yeah, so admittedly, because we have a lot going on, at least in our lives, my speed to lead is not near what it should be. Most successful wholesalers are doing it within 24 hours. They're getting there, they're getting contracts signed, things like that. So we could probably have higher ratios than what we currently do if we had better speed to lead. So right now, call comes in, goes to call porter then puts it into RE Simply, and then from there, then we work the lead. I usually try and give a call back within the first 24 hours, getting that lead into our CRM. And then from there, try and get someone out there as quickly as I can. Sometimes it takes a couple of days because we're working with other people's schedules, not just my own. And so that's the hardest part about having some of these remote folks is you can't just be like, yeah, hey, Sally Jones is going to be out there today. It's like, okay, well, Sally Jones, what does your schedule look like? And does this work for you?
Yeah.
And so that's probably the hardest part about the speed to lead side of things is we can't get someone out there immediately just because it's not our own. They're not within our company. They're not on our payroll. It's certainly not me. And so it's working around other people's schedules.
The logistics can be difficult, but I mean, again, you can kind of figure that stuff out. And sorry, one other question that popped in my head with that $3,000 you're spending, are you hitting the traditional niche list inside of PropStream? Are you doing anything different outside of the standard list that everyone hits?
No, we're hitting the traditional list. And honestly, again, our area, we're getting enough leads that if we did more than this, I mean, we would be overrun with calls and trying to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. And I will say too, on the speed to lead piece, something that we have found with like a lot of the virtual marketing stuff that we've done is if you're in a smaller town or you're in a more rural area, generally you have a little bit more leeway on that versus like if you're in, a super competitive market, you're in Tampa, right? You're in Austin, you're in, the Northeast somewhere. The speed to lead is super important because there's also 8 other people that are getting that same lead that day.
Yep.
And honestly, whoever gets there first is probably going to be the one that wins. But if you're in some of these more rural markets, which honestly, I recommend people explore some of these rural areas. You don't have to go to where Kyle is. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of markets like this across the United States. You have a little more time because that's also the culture of the sellers is, they're kind of like, they want a handshake. They want to be able to figure out their life. They are living in these rural areas because they're not trying to, hustle and bustle their way to everything. Yeah. And so you need to be able to match that.
If they're older, they don't check their phone or if even have email for 3 days. So they don't care.
Yeah, totally. We have a deal right now that we just signed around in rural Idaho. It's a good little story for you guys. This guy only checks his phone on Sundays and Thursdays. He has a house phone, a landline. That is what he's told us. He said that if we call him on Friday, he will get back to us on Sunday. If we call him on Monday, he will get back to us on Thursday. He does not have the internet. That is what he does. Wow. So speed to lead there is not important at all. I can tell you. But, he lives in the middle of nowhere outside of Twin Falls, Idaho. And that's, it's such the social piece of this business tends to get so lost because people, they try to they watch Andy Elliott on Instagram. They're like, every business needs to look at this where I'm getting all pumped up. But the rapport building piece is all about knowing what is the standard for your market. And I think probably Kyle, being from there too, you probably know that pretty well. So being with your business and everything you're balancing, what do you think has been the best system that you've integrated that's led to a lot of your success, or what is one of the big keys do you think? Is it you're gotten so good at making offers? Is it that, this virtual piece, what do you think has been your big secret, I would say?
Honestly, I think the time commitment for me is dedicating that time at night to make sure that I'm doing something for the business to help push it forward, whether it's, underwriting 5 deals or making sure that I submit 5 offers or, whatever the case might be. It's dedicating that time on my nights and weekends to make sure that I do something. Because if you're not doing anything, the business isn't going anywhere. You can put forth all the systems in the world, and unless there's action being taken, nothing's going to go forward. So for me, certainly working in different virtual markets or having a wider footprint, having those, we'll just call them bird dogs or folks that go out and actually walk these houses has been a game changer for me because I'm not sitting in the car for 3 hours. Instead, I can take that 3 hours, underwrite some deals, have some calls, spend some time with my family, maybe hit the golf course here and there. Certainly that has allowed this business to continue to push forward. And actually, we're getting a lot of success with that.
Nice. Very cool. And do you mind just going over your general numbers? I know you've done these deals. What's your current projected revenue look like?
Yep. So far right now, revenue since we'll call it January 1, we're at $74,300. The total expenses that we spent between marketing and different platforms, programs, things like that, we're at $43,000. And then, from that, we've got about a profit of $31,300.
31,000. And that's your realized, right? So what about with your flips? What are you projecting?
So with flips, we're going to be projecting right now, the first flip will have about $47,000. That's after all holding costs and listing costs. And then depending on what we do with this next flip, we should be able to get around that $25,000 to $45,000, depending again, how much we put into it and things like that.
So it's about what, 70,000? Is my math right?
Yep. So we'll be at, if everything falls into place the way I hope it will, my goal for this year was $120,000 of revenue. We should be pretty darn close to that, if not surpassing that.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. That's awesome first.
That's
start.
Money already spent too. So you'll have 140-ish K over that same spend. It's pretty good.
Yeah. And you still have your pipeline. And I guarantee you, even if you stopped marketing right now, there's probably a deal per month that you could scrape out of the leads that you already have at least. So
if you have 164, there's at least a couple deals in there.
At least. Yeah.
Yeah.
So statistically, if they're all male, I think it should be 4. It's about 40-ish leads per deal. So right on, man. Very, very cool.
That's not to include the equity and stuff you have in the 9 unit.
Correct. Yep. Now, if you factor in, the $80,000 down payment that we had on the 9 unit, then we're still a little bit in the red, but we should, depend on what we do.
That's bought equity. It's not.
Yeah.
I want to count that against your P&L.
So,
yeah. So sweet, man. Awesome, dude. Well, it's awesome to see your success and get the full story on that. Cause I know we obviously see a lot in scale. This has honestly been the most fun thing with me about these shows is we get like an actual deep dive into what people are working on and not just like either the problems or the wins, which is what we see in the group, which is great. But I always like to hear the logistics. All right, we're going to dive into our end of show questions here. So first question, Kyle, what is your craziest real estate story?
Yeah, so let's get into the first wholesale deal that we did, if you want to call it that. So we got we found a 5-unit property that we had marketed to. They called in, we had negotiations. We got it locked in at like $74,000. We were thinking we could probably wholesale it for around $90,000. And so start reaching out to the buyers list. Really wasn't getting a whole lot. We had a few offers. They were all low ball offers and things like that. It's really a great opportunity for the right person. So I'm like, well, shoot, this isn't working. So we throw it up on Investor Lift and try and get a little bit of traction there. We have a lot of people that actually reach out about it. And this blast went out to a real estate agent up in the Twin Cities metro area. So she sends it to her buyer, and her buyer tries to go around us and reaches out directly to the seller. And so he didn't realize that we had this thing under contract. So he's sitting there firing off messages to the seller saying, hey, I want to buy this property. And then she finds out that we put it up on Investor Lift. And so now she's mad. And so this is my first true wholesale opportunity. So I'm sitting here shitting my pants.
Yeah.
What do I do? So I remember I blasted you and Dan actually on what do I even do with this situation? Because now she's like, I want to cancel the contract. I'm like, well, we're not canceling the contract. We're either going to buy this thing myself or find out some way to get this thing wholesale and dispoed. So I'm blasting you and Dan finally reached out. We hop on a call. He's like, well, here's what I would do. I'd do this and this and this. And, you could put cloud on title, things like that. And so what I did is I just had a message back and forth with her like, hey, here's the deal. We've got this thing under contract. We've got closing set up for end of May. I'd like to still do that. Let's go ahead and get this thing closed for you. And you can walk away with the money that you were promised. We'll get the property and continue to provide housing for this town and, things like that. And she was like, nope, I want to cancel the contract. So again, I'm sitting here, and of course my wife's out of town for a work convention. So I'm sitting here like, what in the hell do I do? So anyways, we have to go down the route of saying, hey, here's the deal. If you don't come to closing table or you can't come to an agreement, we will issue cloud on title and you will not be able to sell this property to anybody else. Come to agreement. She says, well, I still want you to cancel the contract. It's okay. Well, here's the deal. I will cancel the contract for a $7,500 fee, which again, for us, that's money that'll help continue to fund the next marketing, keep the business rolling. And back and forth on this, we settled on $5,000. So my first wholesale deal was basically canceling a contract for a $5,000 fee.
That is a first. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah. That's funny. It's funny that you went through that too, because we actually took a lot of your lessons. This is also another thing I love about the scale community, and a big reason that we've really focused on bringing in good operators. We actually just did the same thing in a different deal. And we had never done that before. And so we actually took a lot of lessons from working with you on that. We applied that to our team on a deal that we're closing. Well, was supposed to close last Friday. And we're going to get paid for here on Wednesday from the seller. Exactly the same situation.
Did that other end buyer end up buying the 5-unit?
So I don't know. I was going to check and see on the records to see who ended up buying it, but I believe it went through. So we actually had him under contract. We had an assignment of $84,000. So we had a nice $10,000 spread there that we would have collected on. But at the end of the day, we walk away with $5,000, and it helped fund our marketing for the next month and kept on rolling. So
a 5-unit for $90,000 still blows my mind, but
I know, it's crazy. Yeah. Well, I can't buy anything here for that. That's what we sell empty lots for here. Like seriously.
So Kyle, to follow up with that, one other question for you is, if you could go back to the very beginning, what's one thing you would do differently?
Yeah, so I think honestly, I would have conversations early on. Just start meeting buyers, just go to meetups, just anything you can do to build up your network and advertise yourself as being an investor and offering deals or working with people just to build that network, because the disposition side of this is a lot more difficult than people think if you don't have the connections already set up. And that's where I probably went wrong the first time, was not having that buyers list out. But now that we've done more deals, we've built a name for ourselves, we've gone to communities, we've talked to folks, I've had lunch with, a dozen different investors. So I know a lot of people where if I come across a deal, I could probably get it disposed quickly. That's probably the biggest thing that I go back and do differently.
Yeah. And I'll say that's the trade-off for like those smaller markets where acquisitions is going to be quote unquote easier, is your exit is going to be harder. Right. It's going to be just less people that are interested in the market versus if you're doing stuff in Austin, Texas, right? You're going to be able to find buyers all day. But that's nothing's perfect, right? That's you got to pick which challenge you want to try and figure out if you want to do anything in this business. So makes sense. All right, Kyle, where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, McNelly7. If anybody wants to look me up, feel free, send me a request, or if you got a question, feel free to. It's McNelly with one L, so McNely 7. Otherwise, certainly you can reach out to me at Kyle@TripleRockHomebuyers.com. Happy to answer any questions or reach out to anybody if that's helpful.
Cool. Right on. Well, guys, if you guys are in the Minnesota market, anywhere down south, hit up Kyle. He is making waves over there. Probably knows buyers that want to buy your deals out in bumfuck nowhere that you don't think you can find buyers for, because it sounds like he has mastered that. So, Kyle, my man, thanks so much for coming on the show, and congratulations on your success, dude. It's really, really awesome. You're one of my favorite success stories, especially because you started out so green, and to see things come full circle is really, really cool. Anything you want to say before we finish out, Dylan?
No, I was just going to say the same thing. I know people have tried to get in real estate for 5 years and haven't done as much volume as Kyle has. And that's just because he decided to take action.
Yeah. And this is at like minimum scale. As you start to really boost that, you're going to be slinging a lot of deals here very, very quickly. But awesome, guys. Well, don't be afraid to reach out to Kyle if you got any inspiration from him. And if you didn't, I don't know what to tell you. Go, I don't know, write in your affirmation journal or some other bullshit. But thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
See ya.